What if everything you thought you knew about love, karma, and divine justice was about to be turned upside down? This Wednesday, the divine masculine will face a reckoning so powerful, it could change the entire course of the twin flame journey. But here's the catch: this isn't a gentle wake-up call. It's not just a test. It's a punishment. The universe has been waiting for this moment, and now it's time for the masculine to confront the consequences of his choices. The divine feminine has risen, and her energy is no longer available to him in the same way. The shift has already begun, and the clock is ticking. Prepare yourself. What's coming next isn't for the faint of heart. The masculine will feel the weight of his past mistakes like never before. This isn't just emotional pain. It's a cosmic realignment that will force him to face his fears, his pride, and his deepest wounds. But why? And what does this mean for both the feminine and the masculine as they face their final test? Don't look away. The universe has set the stage, and the truth will be revealed. Stay tuned to discover the shocking details that could change everything you thought you knew about the twin flame dynamic. You won't want to miss this. The divine feminine's inner transformation represents a profound shift in energy that reverberates throughout the entire twin flame dynamic. This transformation is not simply a passing phase, but a powerful turning point in her spiritual evolution. She has moved beyond the external search for validation and has tapped into her true, authentic self. Her inner journey is a reclamation of her personal power, a return to the essence of who she truly is, without needing to prove it to anyone else. For years, the divine feminine may have searched for external signs of approval or validation, whether it came through relationships, success, or recognition. She often sought to understand her worth by looking outward, but now, that energy has shifted. The divine feminine has come to understand that her true power lies not in others' recognition, but in her own recognition of her worth. She has learned to trust her inner wisdom and strength. This shift is not only personal but spiritual, as she now stands firmly rooted in her own truth, which is aligned with her divine essence. This transformation is deeply connected to her ability to let go of external expectations and to trust her own intuition and desires. The feminine energy that once might have been seen as soft, yielding, or passive is now unwavering, confident, and powerful. She has broken free from the chains of past conditioning and societal pressure, stepping into her divine feminine power with grace and conviction. This newfound strength does not mean she has hardened or become indifferent to the world around her. On the contrary, she has softened into her true nature, radiating compassion, love, and nurturing energy from a place of inner peace and strength. The transformation also marks a shift from seeking external validation to a profound sense of inner peace. The divine feminine is no longer chasing after approval or external accolades. Instead, she is deeply rooted in her own validation. She no longer seeks others to affirm her worth or her journey. This shift has enabled her to connect with her higher self on a deeper level, leading to spiritual enlightenment. She now understands that everything she needs is within her: her intuition, her wisdom, her strength, and the journey forward is guided by this inner knowing. As she steps into this power, her energy is felt by those around her, especially her twin flame counterpart. The dynamic between the twin flames shifts as the divine feminine becomes more whole, more aligned with her higher self. No longer waiting or depending on the masculine for completion, she is now a full embodiment of her divine essence. This transformation has also led to her becoming a beacon of light for others, showing them that true power comes from within and that alignment with the divine self is the key to spiritual fulfillment. The divine feminine's inner transformation is not just about personal growth. It is about aligning with the universe's divine flow. She is now in harmony with the energies around her, understanding that everything happens in divine timing. The shift marks the end of the struggle for control and the beginning of a new chapter, one where she is fully in alignment with her soul's purpose. The transformation is a reminder that the most powerful shift comes from within, and when the divine feminine steps into her power, she becomes a catalyst for not only her own evolution but for the evolution of all around her. The divine feminine's inner transformation is an embodiment of strength, wisdom, and alignment with her authentic self. It is a journey of letting go of old patterns, trusting her inner voice, and embracing her power. This shift is not only impacting the twin flame dynamic but is serving as a reminder that true spiritual growth begins from within and is the most profound transformation one can experience. The silent power of the feminine's presence is an extraordinary and transformative force that has the ability to shift both the individual and the collective energy. For so long, the feminine energy has been associated with nurturing, giving, and being outwardly expressive, often looking for validation or confirmation from external sources. But in her current evolution, the feminine has found a deeper source of power, one that does not rely on outside circumstances or approval. Her strength now lies in her ability to be still, to be fully present, and to hold space for herself and others with unshakable confidence. This silent strength is not about remaining passive or silent in the traditional sense. Rather, it is a dynamic force that resonates through the very core of her being. It is the type of energy that does not need to speak loudly to be heard. It is felt in the way she moves through the world, with grace, inner peace, and authenticity. She no longer feels the need to prove her worth or justify her existence. Her power comes from within, from a deep alignment with her higher self and the universe. It is an energy that cannot be ignored because it radiates from a place of absolute confidence in who she is. What makes the feminine's presence so powerful is that it creates a space for transformation. Her energy is magnetic, drawing others toward her, especially the masculine. As she steps into her full embodiment of inner peace and alignment, she becomes a mirror for the masculine, reflecting his own shadows and desires. Her quiet power makes him face the unresolved parts of himself that he may have been avoiding. There is no need for confrontation or words. The mere presence of the feminine, anchored in her truth and love, forces the masculine to reflect on his own actions, choices, and spiritual path. This shift in the feminine's energy is also deeply empowering for her. She is no longer dependent on external validation or approval. In the past, she may have sought external sources to validate her worth, such as through relationships, career achievements, or societal status. But now, she has come to realize that her true worth does not come from these things. It comes from the deep connection with her inner being, her soul's wisdom, and her alignment with the divine. Her presence becomes a reflection of her inner peace, a quiet yet powerful force that does not need to shout to be heard. She has learned to trust in the flow of the universe and in her own divine timing. As the feminine stands firmly in her inner alignment, her energy shifts from one of dependence to one of complete self-sufficiency. She no longer needs to chase, beg, or chase after external sources of approval or love. She has recognized that love, validation, and peace come from within. The magnetic energy she exudes now draws only those who resonate with her elevated vibration, allowing her to create and maintain healthier, more balanced relationships. Moreover, this silent power of the feminine creates space for others to heal and evolve, especially the masculine. By being fully present and unwavering in her energy, the feminine allows the masculine to face his own internal struggles, fears, and doubts. There is no need for words, explanations, or judgments. Her presence alone is enough to spark a transformation. In many ways, she becomes the spiritual guide, not by leading with words but by embodying the truth of who she is. The feminine's silent strength is not passive, it is active and transformative. It is a force that has the potential to change not only her own life but also the lives of those around her, especially her twin flame counterpart. Through her alignment, inner peace, and self-sufficiency, she becomes an undeniable force of change, one that is felt deeply, without needing to say a word. This shift is the essence of divine feminine power, silent, potent, and transformative. The power of sovereignty in the twin flame connection is a profound and transformative shift that marks a significant evolution in the divine feminine's journey. Sovereignty, in this context, is not just about personal independence, but about a deep spiritual alignment with one's true self and divine essence. It represents a state of being where the feminine no longer seeks external validation, approval, or acceptance, especially from her twin flame counterpart. Instead, she has fully realized her own worth and power, standing in the absolute truth of her soul's essence. For much of her journey, the divine feminine may have been conditioned to look outside herself for approval, especially in relationships. She may have believed that her worth was tied to how others, particularly the masculine, perceived her. But as she moves into sovereignty, she learns that true power does not come from external sources, it comes from within. She no longer needs validation from the masculine to know her worth. She understands that her value is inherent, tied to the divine love and light that resides within her. Her journey is now about aligning with her soul's purpose and radiating that energy outward, independent of external factors. This realization of sovereignty is both liberating and empowering. The divine feminine no longer finds herself chasing after the masculine's approval, or struggling to win his affection. She has come to understand that her energy is sacred and that she is whole and complete in herself. This inner peace and autonomy send powerful ripples through the twin flame connection. The moment she steps into her sovereignty, the dynamic between the two souls begins to shift. No longer does she feel the need to hold on to the connection desperately. Instead, she releases the attachment and trusts that everything is unfolding in divine timing. Her peace is a powerful force, one that creates space for both souls to grow and evolve. The power of sovereignty in the twin flame connection also creates the necessary space for the masculine to evolve. As the feminine stands in her own power, the masculine is forced to confront his own issues. The more she steps into her divine autonomy, the more he feels the absence of her energy and begins to feel the weight of the disconnection. This absence is not an act of rejection but a reflection of the universe's divine order. The feminine's sovereignty does not push him away. It creates the conditions for him to look inward and face his own spiritual challenges. He is now confronted with the reality that true connection can only exist when both souls are aligned with their highest selves. Sovereignty also means that the feminine no longer seeks to fix the masculine. In the past, she may have felt responsible for his healing, attempting to heal his wounds or carry his emotional burdens. But now, she understands that her role is not to heal him, but to heal herself. She no longer needs to save him or hold space for him in a way that diminishes her own energy. Instead, she leads by example, showing the masculine what true healing and sovereignty look like. She demonstrates that personal transformation comes from within, and that both souls must independently reach their highest potential in order to reunite in divine alignment. The sovereignty of the divine feminine creates a powerful energetic field that encourages growth and self-discovery for both individuals. As she stands in her truth, her strength becomes magnetic, drawing the masculine toward his own awakening. Her sovereignty is not about control or dominance, but about an authentic embodiment of divine power, peace, and love. It is an invitation for both souls to rise together, not through force, but through mutual respect and spiritual alignment. In the twin flame connection, the divine feminine's sovereignty is a catalyst for transformation. It is the moment when she fully understands that her power lies in her own autonomy, and that by standing in her truth, she allows both herself and the masculine to evolve. Her sovereignty is the key that unlocks the growth potential within both souls, creating the space necessary for them to reconnect at a higher level. This shift is not just about individual growth, but about the deep, sacred union that happens when both souls come into alignment with their true, sovereign selves. The feminine's steady rise, an unstoppable force, marks a monumental shift in both the twin flame connection and the spiritual journey of the divine feminine. As she steps into her true power, the feminine becomes a force to be reckoned with, an energy that is unyielding, transformative, and deeply rooted in self-love, clarity, and peace. This rise is not born from external circumstances or fleeting emotions but from a deep alignment with her highest self and divine purpose. Her energy now radiates from a place of complete inner knowing, and it becomes an unstoppable force that not only elevates her own spirit but also shifts the dynamics of the twin flame connection in profound ways. In the past, the divine feminine may have struggled with self-doubt, insecurity, or a sense of unworthiness, especially in the context of her relationship with the masculine. She may have sought validation or approval from him, or from the outside world, unsure of her own worth. However, through her spiritual journey, she has come to realize that her true power lies within herself. This realization is not just intellectual but deeply embodied. The feminine now knows that she is the creator of her own reality, and that her worth and strength are inherent, independent of anyone else's perception. This transformation is not a quick or simple process, but one that takes time, inner work, and deep self-reflection. The result is a steady, unstoppable rise of her energy, as she moves in alignment with the divine. Her rise is anchored in self-love, which is the foundation of her strength. Self-love is not about narcissism or ego. It is about honoring and respecting herself as a divine being. It is about recognizing her inherent value and treating herself with the same care and compassion she freely gives to others. As the feminine steps into her power, she becomes a radiant beacon of love and peace, and this energy naturally expands outward. Her unwavering commitment to herself sets the tone for how she interacts with the world and the masculine. She no longer seeks to heal, fix, or change anyone, including her twin flame. Instead, she focuses on healing and aligning with her highest truth, allowing her authentic energy to shine. The clarity that comes with this rise is another powerful aspect of the feminine's transformation. No longer lost in confusion, self-doubt, or the emotional turbulence of the past, the feminine now operates from a place of clear vision and divine understanding. Her inner peace and alignment with her higher self give her the ability to discern truth from illusion, to see through the fog of uncertainty, and to act with purpose and intention. This clarity is felt deeply by the masculine, who may have once been confused or uncertain about the connection. As the feminine steps into her power, her energy becomes a mirror that forces him to confront his own inner truths. His perception of her, and of the connection, begins to shift dramatically. What once may have been unclear or chaotic now becomes illuminated by her unwavering presence and clarity. This rise is not just a personal transformation for the feminine, but a shift in the entire dynamic of the twin flame connection. As she becomes an unstoppable force within herself, she sets the stage for the masculine's awakening. Her energy, rooted in self-love, clarity, and peace, creates the necessary space for him to evolve. The more she embodies her truth and inner power, the more she calls him into his own transformation. The masculine begins to feel the gravity of her presence, and he is compelled to rise to meet her at her elevated level. The feminine no longer chases or seeks validation from him, but her energy naturally draws him in, making him confront his own fears, doubts, and unresolved wounds. The feminine's steady rise, an unstoppable force, is a powerful reminder that when the divine feminine steps into her full power, she becomes a transformative force that reshapes not only her own life but also the twin flame dynamic. Her rise is a journey of self-realization, self-love, and spiritual alignment, and it shifts the entire connection in profound ways. The more she aligns with her truth, the more her energy resonates with the masculine, inviting him to awaken to his own truth. This steady rise is not just an individual triumph, it is the key to the union and ascension of both souls. Spiritual rebirth through detachment is one of the most powerful and transformative experiences in the divine feminine's journey. The act of detachment is often misunderstood, especially in the context of relationships, as something negative or final, an abandonment or rejection of the other. However, in the spiritual context of the twin flame journey, the divine feminine's detachment from the masculine is not an act of abandonment, but an act of profound spiritual rebirth. It is through this detachment that she finds her true self, her inner peace, and her spiritual growth. For the divine feminine, detachment is not about withdrawing or shutting down emotionally. It is about releasing the need for external validation, control, or dependence on the masculine to define her worth. In the past, she may have found herself entangled in emotional patterns, always waiting for the masculine's approval, love, or recognition. She may have put her own needs aside, hoping that the connection would evolve according to her desires or expectations. But as she moves deeper into her spiritual awakening, she realizes that true peace does not come from seeking anything outside of herself. True peace comes from within. Detachment, in this sense, becomes a necessary step in the feminine's spiritual evolution. It is not a withdrawal from love or from the connection, but a step toward re-establishing her connection with herself. When she detaches, she begins to let go of the old patterns of attachment that once defined her relationship with the masculine. She recognizes that her worth is not tied to his actions or responses. Instead, her worth is intrinsic, rooted in her divine essence. This shift in perspective allows her to find inner peace, as she no longer looks to the masculine, or anyone else, outside of herself to feel whole or complete. This act of detachment is an essential part of the feminine's spiritual rebirth. As she steps into her own sovereignty, she begins to understand that she is not responsible for the masculine's journey or healing. She cannot carry his burdens, nor is it her role to heal him. The moment she lets go of the responsibility to fix or save him is the moment she frees herself to focus on her own growth, transformation, and spiritual awakening. In this space of detachment, she becomes fully aligned with her higher self, which creates the conditions for her own spiritual rebirth. Through detachment, the divine feminine allows herself to experience the full power of self-love. She no longer seeks to prove her love or value to the masculine. Instead, she becomes the embodiment of love itself, nurturing herself and embracing her own divine nature. This is where true transformation happens. As she releases the need to chase, control, or force the connection to unfold in a certain way, she opens herself up to receive the divine love and guidance that is always available to her. She becomes more deeply connected to her intuition, her spirit, and the flow of the universe, which leads her to a greater understanding of herself and her purpose. The divine feminine's detachment also creates the space for the masculine to evolve. By letting go of the need to control or manage the connection, she allows him the freedom to confront his own fears, insecurities, and spiritual challenges. Her detachment does not push him away. Rather, it creates the necessary distance for both souls to heal, grow, and transform. This space is essential for both the feminine and masculine to individually return to their divine essence, so they can come together in a higher, more aligned union. In the end, spiritual rebirth through detachment is a powerful act of self-liberation. It is not about abandoning the connection, but about reclaiming one's own energy, peace, and sovereignty. The divine feminine's detachment marks a new beginning, a return to herself, where she can fully embody her divine power and love. In this space of freedom and inner peace, she finds the path to her true self, and in turn, she becomes a catalyst for the masculine's spiritual awakening and growth. Through detachment, the feminine rebirths herself into a higher state of being, and in doing so, she transforms the entire dynamic of the twin flame journey. The masculine's reckoning with his own darkness is an essential part of the twin flame journey, and it represents a critical turning point in his spiritual evolution. For much of his journey, the masculine has been driven by fear, pride, and an unwillingness to confront the deeper parts of himself. He may have avoided facing his inner shadows, choosing instead to stay in patterns of resistance, avoidance, or emotional detachment. However, as the divine feminine rises into her own sovereignty and peace, the masculine is forced to confront the consequences of his past actions. The feminine's absence, which he once interpreted as rejection, is revealed as a powerful reflection of his own neglect and unresolved issues. For the masculine, this reckoning is not an act of punishment from the universe or the feminine. It is a divine reflection, a spiritual mirror that compels him to face the truth of who he has become and the choices he has made. The feminine, having stepped into her own alignment and peace, no longer chases or seeks validation from the masculine. Her energy shifts from a state of dependence to one of inner peace, and in this space, the masculine begins to feel the weight of his actions and inactions. He starts to recognize that her absence is not a personal attack, but a direct result of his own emotional neglect, fear of vulnerability, and avoidance of the love she was offering. The masculine's reckoning with his own darkness is a confrontation with his deepest fears and unresolved emotions. For so long, he may have been unwilling to acknowledge the pain, shame, or guilt that he carries within. He may have used distractions, ego-driven pursuits, or superficial relationships to avoid facing his own vulnerability. But now, in the silence created by the feminine's detachment, he is forced to look inward. He must face the parts of himself that he has kept hidden or denied, the fears that have kept him from fully embracing love, the pride that has prevented him from admitting his mistakes, and the unresolved wounds that have dictated his actions in the connection. As he reckons with his darkness, the masculine is confronted with the realization that the love he once took for granted was not something to be dismissed or avoided. It was something precious, a divine gift, and he now feels the painful absence of it. This absence serves as a catalyst for his healing. The pain of the feminine's absence is not meant to break him, but to awaken him to the truth of his own emotional state. It is a wake-up call that forces him to confront his deepest fears, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being good enough, and the fear of truly opening his heart. These fears have kept him stuck in cycles of avoidance, but now they rise to the surface, compelling him to deal with them once and for all. This reckoning is not just an emotional experience, it is a spiritual awakening. The masculine's journey is one of self-discovery, healing, and transformation. His confrontation with his shadows forces him to recognize the impact of his past actions, and it provides the opportunity for deep healing and growth. As he faces his fears and his pride, he begins to shed the layers of his ego and embrace the truth of who he is. This process of healing is painful, but it is necessary for his spiritual evolution. Only by confronting his darkness can he step into the light of his own authenticity. The masculine's reckoning is a powerful moment in the twin flame connection, not just for him but for both souls. As he faces his own darkness, he opens the door to healing, both for himself and for the connection. The feminine's absence, once perceived as a rejection, becomes the space in which the masculine finds the strength to heal and evolve. In this process, both souls are transformed. The masculine learns to face his shadows, heal his wounds, and step into his true power, and the feminine continues her journey of self-empowerment, anchoring both in their divine alignment. This reckoning is a crucial step in their shared journey towards spiritual union and ascension. The feminine's path to inner peace is a sacred journey, one that involves shedding old patterns of seeking external validation and learning to embrace the quiet, unshakable peace that resides within her. For much of her life, the divine feminine may have found herself reacting to the circumstances around her, constantly seeking approval, love, or recognition from others, especially from the masculine. She may have struggled with the desire to prove her worth or to earn her place in the world. However, as she moves deeper into her spiritual awakening, the feminine begins to realize that true peace is not something she can find outside of herself. It is an inherent state of being, waiting to be embraced from within. The path to inner peace for the feminine is not about ignoring the external world or pretending that challenges and struggles do not exist. Rather, it is about shifting her relationship to those external circumstances. She learns to stop reacting to the events and people around her and, instead, to respond from a place of inner stillness and clarity. Her peace does not depend on the actions or words of others. It is anchored in her own self-awareness and alignment with her highest truth. This shift is transformative because it allows her to remain calm and centered even in the face of adversity. The external world may change, but her inner peace becomes her foundation, unshaken by outside influences. This journey of inner peace also involves a deep recognition that the feminine no longer needs to seek validation from others to feel worthy or complete. For so long, she may have looked to the masculine, society, or external achievements to measure her value. She may have believed that she had to prove herself in some way, earning love or recognition through her actions. But as she steps into her spiritual power, she understands that her true essence is not defined by anyone else's perception of her. She is whole and complete just as she is. This realization is liberating because it frees her from the constant need to seek validation from the outside world. Her self-worth now comes from within, from a deep knowing of her divine nature and her connection to the universe. As the feminine fully embraces her energy, she begins to shine more brightly than ever before. She steps into her true essence, no longer hiding parts of herself or dimming her light to fit into the expectations of others. The more she aligns with her authentic self, the more her energy becomes magnetic, drawing in only what is in alignment with her higher purpose. This shift is powerful because it allows her to live in full alignment with her soul's truth, rather than being influenced by the fleeting judgments or opinions of others. She becomes a beacon of light, radiating peace, love, and acceptance from within. The journey to inner peace is also one of profound self-acceptance. The feminine learns to embrace every part of herself, the light and the shadow, the strengths and the vulnerabilities. She no longer judges herself or feels the need to change in order to fit into some ideal or mold. She accepts herself unconditionally, and in doing so, she becomes more whole and integrated. This acceptance brings deep peace because it eliminates the inner conflict that arises from trying to live up to unrealistic expectations. The feminine realizes that she is enough just as she is, and this acceptance becomes the foundation of her inner peace. Ultimately, the feminine's path to inner peace is a journey of liberation. She liberates herself from the need for external validation, from the weight of self-judgment, and from the constant desire to control or fix situations. She learns to trust the flow of life, to surrender to the universe's timing, and to embrace the present moment with gratitude and love. In this space, she becomes a living embodiment of peace, calm, centered, and fully aligned with her divine truth. Her inner peace is not just a personal experience. It radiates out into the world, touching everyone she encounters and creating a ripple effect of healing and transformation. The feminine, fully embracing her essence, becomes a force of divine peace, reminding us all that true peace is found when we stop searching for it outside of ourselves and begin to cultivate it within. The masculine's spiritual awakening through loss is a deeply transformative experience, one that marks the moment when the masculine begins to confront the weight of his choices and the impact they have had on the twin flame connection. This awakening is catalyzed by a powerful realization. The masculine understands what he has lost: the unwavering love, support, and energy of the divine feminine. For so long, he may have taken her presence for granted, assuming that her love would always be there, that her energy would remain a constant source of comfort and guidance. But as the feminine steps into her own power, stepping back and releasing attachment to the masculine, he is forced to feel the profound absence of her energy. This loss becomes the spark for his spiritual awakening, a moment when he can no longer avoid the deeper emotional and spiritual truths that have long been hidden within him. This awakening is not merely an intellectual realization. It is a deep, soul-shifting experience that challenges the masculine to face the emotional emptiness and the consequences of his past actions. The absence of the feminine's love is felt in every part of his being. It is a loss that cannot be ignored or dismissed. The void left by her energy is not just a temporary feeling of loneliness, it is a profound spiritual disconnection. For the first time, the masculine sees clearly what he has ignored, dismissed, or taken for granted in his connection with the feminine. Her love, which once seemed to flow endlessly toward him, is now absent, and he is left with the weight of that realization. This awakening is not an act of punishment, but a divine opportunity to confront the truth of his own neglect, avoidance, and resistance. The awakening is deeply emotional, as it forces the masculine to face the pain of what he has lost. This pain is not just the absence of the feminine, but the deeper, more profound truth that he has been running from: the fear of vulnerability, the fear of truly opening his heart, and the fear of committing to the love he knows is real. For so long, he may have avoided these truths, choosing to stay in his comfort zone, avoiding the intensity of the connection with the feminine. He may have resisted her love, pushed her away, or kept himself emotionally distant, believing that doing so would protect him from the vulnerability that true love requires. However, as he faces the consequences of his actions, her absence, his inner emptiness, and the weight of his own emotional walls, he is forced to confront these fears and limitations. This awakening also brings the masculine to a place of deep self-reflection. The loss of the feminine's love forces him to examine his own behaviors, patterns, and the ways in which he has failed to show up fully in the connection. He begins to understand that the feminine's love was not something to be taken for granted, but a sacred gift. Her unwavering support and energy were never about needing to be fixed or healed, but about him opening himself to love and allowing himself to be vulnerable. In this awakening, the masculine starts to recognize the depth of his own wounds, his fears, his pride, and the unresolved emotions that have been keeping him stuck in avoidance. He realizes that only by facing these deeper truths can he begin to heal and evolve. The awakening is a spiritual call to action for the masculine. It invites him to step into his true self, to heal from the wounds that have kept him closed off, and to embrace the love that has always been available to him. The realization of what he has lost is the beginning of his journey towards spiritual wholeness. As he processes his pain and confronts his fears, he begins to open his heart, allowing the love he once resisted to flow freely. This awakening is not about seeking the feminine's love or approval. It is about him reclaiming his own soul, reconnecting with his higher self, and learning to love in a way that transcends his past limitations. Ultimately, the masculine's spiritual awakening through loss is a profound opportunity for growth and transformation. It challenges him to face the emotional and spiritual truths that he has avoided for so long, and opens the door to healing, self-realization, and unconditional love. The loss of the feminine's energy is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of a new chapter, one where the masculine learns to reclaim his power, heal his wounds, and rise to meet the divine feminine at a higher, more evolved level. This awakening is the catalyst for both souls to ascend to their highest potential, coming together in a union that is grounded in love, truth, and spiritual alignment. Cosmic law and the feminine's energy shift represent a profound spiritual principle that governs the twin flame connection. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, operates according to divine laws that seek to bring both the feminine and masculine into alignment with their highest truths. These laws are not about punishment or reward, but about balance and spiritual evolution. Each soul is called to awaken to its divine essence and align with its true purpose, and when one soul rises into its truth, it naturally sets the stage for the other to follow. The feminine's energy shift is a powerful force in this process, as it activates a deep and necessary transformation within the masculine, ultimately bringing balance to their connection. The feminine's energy shift is a sacred and intentional movement in the direction of her highest self. For so long, the divine feminine may have been caught in cycles of emotional dependence, seeking validation from external sources, particularly the masculine. She may have spent much of her energy trying to prove her worth or hold space for the connection, often sacrificing her own peace and power in the process. But as she steps into her truth, shedding the need for approval or external validation, her energy shifts. This shift is not about rejecting the masculine or abandoning the connection. Rather, it is about reclaiming her sovereignty and aligning with her own divine essence. The feminine now understands that her power comes from within, and she radiates this inner truth outward. This powerful energy shift from the feminine directly influences the masculine. The universe's divine laws require that both souls be aligned with their highest truth for the union to be realized. As the feminine rises into her divine power, the masculine is called to step up to meet her at his highest potential. The feminine shift creates the necessary space for the masculine's spiritual evolution. It serves as a mirror, reflecting back to him the parts of himself that he has been avoiding, his own fears, pride, and resistance to vulnerability. Her alignment with her highest self becomes the catalyst for his awakening. The energy she radiates, grounded in peace, self-love, and clarity, calls him to reflect on his own life, his choices, and his spiritual path. The universe responds to this alignment by balancing the energies within the connection. The feminine's energy shift is not an isolated event but part of a divine orchestration that is deeply connected to the masculine's growth. As the feminine's energy becomes more self-sufficient, peaceful, and aligned with her truth, the masculine's own inner work is triggered. This creates a space where both souls can evolve. The more the feminine steps into her divine essence, the more the masculine is compelled to heal his wounds, face his inner shadows, and step into his own truth. This process is necessary for both souls to align at the highest level, bringing them closer to union. The energy shift of the feminine is thus a divine act of cosmic law. The universe enforces this law of alignment, which ensures that both souls are ready for each other when the time is right. The feminine shift accelerates the masculine's spiritual evolution, allowing both energies to align in perfect harmony. This cosmic balance is essential for the twin flame connection to reach its highest potential. When both souls are aligned with their highest truths, they become powerful forces of transformation, not only for themselves but for the world around them. Ultimately, the feminine's energy shift sets the stage for the spiritual evolution of both the feminine and the masculine. Through her alignment with her divine truth, she activates a cosmic law that brings balance to their connection. The universe's divine laws are always working in perfect harmony to ensure that both souls are ready to meet each other at their highest level. The feminine shift is not just an individual transformation, but a catalyst for the growth of both souls, bringing them into perfect alignment for their ultimate union. This is the divine law at work, bringing both the feminine and masculine into their highest truth, and creating a space where their energies can finally merge in perfect harmony. The power of divine feminine silence is one of the most profound and transformative aspects of her spiritual journey. In a world that often associates silence with passivity or absence, the feminine silence is either of these things. It is an active, dynamic force that plays a pivotal role in the awakening and evolution of both herself and her twin flame. The silence of the feminine is not a withdrawal, but rather a recalibration of energy, a deep act of self-preservation, and a catalyst for reflection and transformation. Through her silence, the feminine creates the necessary space for deep spiritual growth, not only for herself but for the masculine as well. For much of the journey, the divine feminine may have been engaged in constant emotional labor, holding space for the connection, offering unconditional love, and nurturing the growth of her counterpart. However, as she steps into her divine power and sovereignty, the need to constantly give of herself diminishes. The feminine realizes that in order to grow, she must reclaim her energy, and this reclamation comes through silence. Her silence is not an act of ignoring or rejecting the masculine, but a powerful energetic shift that allows her to recalibrate, reflect, and realign with her higher self. It is a moment of quiet strength, where she recognizes that true power comes from within and does not need to be constantly projected outward. This silence, as the feminine embraces it, becomes a mirror for the masculine's own awakening. For so long, the masculine may have relied on the feminine's energy, attention, and emotional support to feel grounded or secure. He may have taken her constant love for granted, assuming that she would always be there, offering her energy freely. But as the feminine steps into her silence, she begins to withdraw her energy from him. This absence of her usual presence serves as a powerful reflection for the masculine. He is now confronted with the stark reality of what his actions, or inactions, have caused. The silence is not a rejection but a divine invitation for the masculine to look inward, to face his own shadows, and to awaken to the truth of the connection. The power of the feminine silence is also rooted in the space it creates for self-reflection and growth. In silence, the feminine is not merely waiting or retreating from the world, she is recalibrating her own energy. This period of stillness allows her to reconnect with her inner truth, to rediscover her spiritual purpose, and to integrate the lessons she has learned along her journey. In this space, she becomes more attuned to her intuition, her divine guidance, and her higher self. The silence provides clarity and deepens her connection to the divine, allowing her to align with her most authentic self. Moreover, the feminine silence serves as a powerful tool of energetic boundary setting. It is a way for her to reclaim her sovereignty, to protect her peace, and to ensure that she is not giving away her energy to situations or people that are not in alignment with her highest good. By stepping into her silence, she sets a boundary that allows the masculine, and herself, to evolve. It is through this space of non-reactivity that the masculine is called to rise to his own higher potential. His awakening is not triggered by her words or actions, but by the absence of her energy and her unwavering peace. The silence of the feminine is a profound spiritual tool that activates transformation on a deep level. It is not absence, but the presence of her true energy, unwavering, powerful, and grounded in her higher truth. Her silence creates the space for both the feminine and the masculine to heal, reflect, and grow. It is in this silence that the masculine is confronted with his own journey of awakening, and it is through this silence that the feminine becomes the divine mirror that reflects his need for healing and self-awareness. In the quiet power of her energy, both souls are given the opportunity to rise, reconnect, and ultimately reunite in a more balanced and spiritually aligned union. The feminine's role in balancing the twin flame energy is a deeply sacred and transformative aspect of the twin flame journey. The twin flame connection is not merely about two souls coming together. It is a dynamic of spiritual growth, emotional healing, and energetic balance. The divine feminine holds a pivotal role in this balance, as her energy has the power to either harmonize or disrupt the flow of the connection. As she aligns with her divine self, her energy shifts the entire dynamic, compelling the masculine to awaken and evolve. This powerful influence is rooted in her ability to embody her highest truth, her self-love, and her inner peace, creating the energetic conditions that both souls need to grow and transform. At the core of the twin flame connection is the law of energetic balance. Each soul, while uniquely individual, is connected in an intricate dance that mirrors and reflects the other's energy. The feminine, through her nurturing, intuitive, and receptive energy, holds the space for the connection to evolve. She acts as the energetic anchor, providing stability and a grounding force that supports the masculine's growth. Her energy is magnetic, and when she aligns with her highest self, she radiates a frequency that is capable of drawing the masculine into his own awakening. This does not happen through force or control, but through the natural flow of her energy, which creates the space for the masculine to reflect on his own path and begin his own spiritual evolution. As the feminine rises into alignment with her divine self, her energy shifts the entire dynamic between the two souls. In the past, she may have felt compelled to chase, to seek validation, or to hold the energy of the relationship alone. However, as she steps into her divine sovereignty, she releases the need to carry the emotional burden of the connection. Instead, she focuses on herself, her own healing, growth, and spiritual alignment. This shift in focus allows her energy to expand, creating a space that is clear, centered, and powerful. Her rising into her own truth and power is not a separation from the masculine, but a call for both souls to rise together. Her energy now aligns with the divine flow, and this alignment acts as a catalyst for the masculine's awakening. The feminine's role in balancing the twin flame energy is not about playing a passive role in the connection. It is about actively embodying her divine essence and becoming a reflection of what is possible when both souls are fully aligned with their highest truths. The masculine, who may have been in a state of avoidance, resistance, or emotional stagnation, begins to feel the gravitational pull of the feminine's energy. His own unresolved issues, fears, and doubts are brought to the surface, compelling him to face the truths he has been avoiding. The feminine's energy does not force him into change, but rather, it creates the space for him to reflect on his own spiritual path and to confront his shadows. The feminine's rising energy is the energetic mirror that compels the masculine to awaken to his own divine essence. This awakening is not always immediate or comfortable, as it often involves confronting painful truths and deep-seated fears. However, the feminine's steady alignment with her higher self provides the masculine with the energetic conditions he needs to heal, evolve, and ultimately awaken to his true self. As she becomes more deeply aligned with her soul's purpose, she catalyzes the masculine's spiritual evolution, encouraging him to step into his own authenticity and divine power. In balancing the twin flame energy, the feminine serves as a guiding light, showing the masculine what it means to embody divine love, self-acceptance, and spiritual clarity. She becomes the mirror that reflects not only his highest potential but also the areas in which he needs to grow. Her energy holds the key to the twin flame union, as it draws both souls into alignment with the divine flow. As the feminine rises into her truth, she does not merely heal herself, but she transforms the entire connection, allowing both the feminine and masculine to evolve, heal, and unite in divine harmony. The healing power of self-love is one of the most transformative and profound aspects of the divine feminine's journey. Self-love, in its truest form, is not merely about self-care practices or occasional affirmations. It is the deep, unwavering acceptance and reverence for oneself as a divine being. For the feminine, this journey into self-love is the key to healing, not only within herself but also within her connection with the masculine. When the feminine fully embraces her worth and begins to nurture her own spirit, she becomes a powerful conduit for healing, both personally and in the twin flame relationship. For much of her life, the divine feminine may have sought love and validation from outside sources. She may have looked to the masculine for affirmation, for recognition, and for emotional support. While these external sources of love are important, the feminine ultimately realizes that true, lasting love must come from within. Self-love is the foundation upon which the feminine's spiritual and emotional growth is built. It is about acknowledging her own divine essence, recognizing her inherent worth, and choosing to love herself unconditionally, regardless of external circumstances. As she begins to focus on self-love, she shifts her energy from seeking approval from others to offering that same love, acceptance, and care to herself. This focus on self-love is the key to the feminine's own healing. When she nurtures her spirit, tending to her emotional, mental, and physical well-being, she creates a space for deep healing to occur. This self-care and love do not come from a place of selfishness or ego. Rather, they come from a place of divine wisdom. The feminine understands that in order to fully give love to others, she must first be full of love herself. This shift is powerful because it means she no longer sacrifices her peace or her energy for the sake of others. Instead, she sets healthy boundaries and ensures that her own needs are met. In doing so, she heals the wounds of the past, whether they are related to abandonment, neglect, or self-doubt, and steps into her true power. As the feminine nurtures her spirit and embraces her self-worth, the universe responds. The more she loves herself, the more she aligns with the flow of divine energy. This alignment has a profound effect on her connection with the masculine. The twin flame dynamic is built on the principle of energetic balance, and when the feminine steps into her own power and love, it creates the conditions for the masculine to do the same. The universe responds by realigning the connection, shifting it into a more harmonious and balanced state. No longer does the feminine feel the need to chase, fix, or change the masculine. Instead, she radiates love and peace from within, which naturally draws the masculine into his own healing journey. This healing power of self-love also affects the masculine's growth. As the feminine aligns with her highest truth and embodies unconditional self-love, she becomes a mirror for the masculine. Her love and acceptance show him what true love looks like, love that is unconditional, transformative, and deeply rooted in self-worth. As she heals herself, the masculine begins to feel the pull to heal his own wounds. He is no longer being saved or fixed by the feminine. Rather, her self-love becomes the catalyst for his own spiritual and emotional healing. This dynamic creates a powerful space for both souls to evolve individually, and as they do, the connection deepens and transforms. The feminine's focus on self-love is the gateway to the healing of both herself and her connection with the masculine. It is through her self-love that she reclaims her power, her peace, and her truth. As she nurtures her own spirit, she creates a space for divine alignment, and the universe responds by realigning the connection in a more harmonious way. The more she steps into her own love and light, the more she invites the masculine to do the same, leading both souls toward the ultimate union of their highest selves. Self-love, then, is not just an individual practice. It is the very force that heals the connection and aligns both souls with their divine purpose. The masculine's fear of losing the feminine is a profound and transformative aspect of the twin flame journey, one that catalyzes deep spiritual awakening and growth. For much of the connection, the masculine may have been accustomed to the feminine's energy, love, and support, relying on her presence to fuel his own journey. Her energy, nurturing and constant, may have served as the anchor he needed to feel secure and grounded. However, as the feminine steps into her own self-sufficiency and wholeness, her energy no longer depends on the masculine's validation or attention. This shift creates a powerful awakening in the masculine, as he is faced with the fear of losing the very energy that once fueled his path. The feminine's growing sense of independence and sovereignty triggers a deep sense of vulnerability within the masculine. For so long, he may have believed that her love was a constant in his life, something he could rely on without needing to fully commit to the connection or confront his own emotional barriers. As the feminine begins to embody her true power and no longer chases or clings to the masculine, he is confronted with a fear he can no longer ignore, the fear of losing her. This fear is not just about physical separation, but about the loss of the energetic connection that has anchored him. Her absence, emotionally or energetically, brings to the surface the masculine's fear of being incomplete or unworthy. He begins to realize that the feminine's energy has been an essential force in his life, and now, as she reclaims her own power, he is left to confront the deep-seated fear of abandonment and disconnection. This fear of losing the feminine becomes a mirror for the masculine, reflecting back to him the unresolved issues he has avoided for so long. As the feminine steps into her sovereignty, she creates the space for the masculine to face his own inner turmoil. The fear of losing her pushes him to confront his pride, his emotional defenses, and his tendency to avoid vulnerability. For many, the masculine has spent much of his life building walls around his heart, fearing that vulnerability would expose him to pain, rejection, or loss. However, as the feminine grows into her own power, his walls begin to crumble. He is forced to examine the root of his resistance, the pride that has kept him from fully opening up, the fear that has prevented him from trusting in love, and the avoidance of emotional intimacy that has hindered his own growth. In the face of this fear, the masculine is given an opportunity for deep healing. The fear of losing the feminine is not meant to drive him into a place of anxiety or despair. Rather, it serves as a catalyst for his spiritual evolution. It forces him to reckon with the emotional and spiritual truths he has been avoiding. The masculine must come to terms with the fact that true love requires vulnerability, surrender, and commitment. The feminine's independence and self-sufficiency are not threats to the connection, but invitations for the masculine to step into his own wholeness and embrace the love that has always been available to him. The masculine's fear of losing the feminine is not about external separation. It is a fear rooted in his own internal disconnect and avoidance of emotional truth. As he faces this fear, he is called to confront his deepest wounds, the parts of himself that have been hiding from love. The feminine's energy, now fully aligned with her divine self, becomes the mirror that reflects back to him the need to heal his pride, soften his defenses, and embrace vulnerability. This fear drives the masculine to do the internal work necessary for his own growth, creating the space for both souls to evolve and ultimately come together in a more harmonious and spiritually aligned union. The fear of losing the feminine is, in essence, the divine masculine's invitation to awaken to his own truth and to step into a more authentic expression of love. It is a necessary phase in the twin flame journey, where the masculine is called to break free from his ego-driven patterns and embrace the vulnerability and openness required for a deep and lasting union. Through facing this fear, he heals and transforms, becoming more connected to his own heart and to the divine flow of love. The feminine's evolution, driven by self-sufficiency and inner peace, sets the stage for the masculine's own awakening, and together, they create a balanced, harmonious, and deeply transformative union. The energetic reversal and its impact on the masculine is a transformative event in the twin flame journey, one that profoundly shifts the dynamic between the feminine and masculine. Throughout much of the relationship, the feminine may have been the one energetically giving, nurturing, and holding space for the connection. Her energy, love, and support were the driving forces that anchored the masculine, often enabling him to avoid confronting his emotional wounds or responsibilities. However, as the feminine steps into her own power, sovereignty, and self-sufficiency, the energy dynamics begin to reverse. No longer does she chase, seek validation, or offer her energy without limits. Instead, she aligns with her divine essence, withdrawing her emotional focus and creating space for herself. This shift in energy has a profound impact on the masculine, who is now faced with the deep, often painful realization of what he has lost, the feminine's unwavering love and support. As the feminine reclaims her energy and stands in her divine alignment, her withdrawal creates a space in the connection that the masculine can no longer ignore. This space is not an abandonment, but a necessary energetic recalibration. The masculine, once accustomed to the feminine's constant emotional availability, begins to feel the absence of her energy. This absence, the perceived loss of her love and support, brings him face to face with the reality of his own emotional neglect. The masculine's tendency to avoid vulnerability, face his emotional wounds, or take responsibility for his actions has shielded him from fully understanding the depth of the feminine's love and the energy she poured into the connection. Now, with her energy withdrawn, he feels the weight of what he has failed to appreciate or reciprocate. It is a feeling of profound loss, as if a vital part of him has been taken away, leaving him to confront the emptiness that was once filled by her presence. This energetic shift serves as a catalyst for the masculine's spiritual and emotional awakening. No longer can he ignore or avoid the emotional debt he carries. The loss of the feminine's love and energy compels him to recognize the depth of his own neglect and the ways in which he has failed to nurture the connection. This realization is not about guilt or shame, but is a profound invitation for healing. The feminine's energetic withdrawal acts as a mirror, reflecting back to him the ways in which he has closed himself off from love, from his own emotional truth, and from his own vulnerability. As he begins to feel the absence of her support, he is forced to confront the emotional wounds he has been avoiding, the fears of rejection, abandonment, and vulnerability that have kept him from fully opening his heart to the feminine. The energetic reversal calls the masculine to step into his own healing process. For so long, he may have leaned on the feminine's energy to guide him, but now, he must find his own strength, healing, and alignment. The loss of the feminine's energy is not a punishment but an invitation for the masculine to rise and evolve into his true self. He is called to confront the emotional and spiritual issues that have been keeping him stagnant, to take responsibility for his actions, and to begin the deep work of self-healing. This process involves not only facing the emotional debt he owes to the feminine but also recognizing the ways in which he has been emotionally closed off or resistant to love. The energetic reversal ultimately brings balance to the connection. The feminine's rise into her own power and sovereignty creates the necessary space for the masculine to heal and evolve. As he recognizes the depth of his emotional debt, he begins the process of transformation, ultimately leading to a more balanced and harmonious union between the two souls. The energetic shift serves as the cosmic push the masculine needs to start his own journey of healing, and through this process, both the feminine and masculine become more aligned with their highest selves. The reversal is not just a separation, it is the beginning of a new chapter of healing, growth, and spiritual evolution that will bring both souls closer to their divine union. The spiritual graduation of the feminine is a profound milestone in her spiritual journey, symbolizing her ascension into a higher state of consciousness, power, and divine alignment. This ascension marks the culmination of everything she has endured, learned, and healed along the way. For the feminine, this phase is not just about personal growth, it is a moment of spiritual realization where she fully steps into her divine essence and embraces her sacred role in the universe. It signifies the end of the waiting phase and the beginning of her spiritual leadership, where she becomes the embodiment of all the lessons she has integrated throughout her journey. For much of the twin flame experience, the divine feminine may have found herself in a state of waiting for the masculine to awaken, to heal, or to meet her at her level of consciousness. She may have spent time chasing, holding space, and hoping that the connection would unfold in the way she desired. However, as she moves through the stages of her spiritual journey, she begins to realize that true fulfillment and alignment do not come from waiting on others. Instead, they come from stepping fully into her own power and purpose. Her spiritual graduation marks the end of this waiting phase and the beginning of her active role as a leader, not only in her connection with the masculine but in her own life and the world around her. This shift in the feminine's energy is a powerful one. It is in alignment with her higher self, where she no longer seeks external validation or approval to feel worthy. She understands that her value is intrinsic, deeply rooted in her divine nature. This realization empowers her to live authentically, in full alignment with her soul's purpose, free from the need for validation from the masculine or anyone else. She has learned to trust herself, her intuition, and her connection to the divine. In doing so, she becomes a beacon of light, radiating love, wisdom, and inner strength. Her power is no longer dependent on external circumstances, but rather comes from the deep well of self-love and divine alignment she has cultivated within herself. The spiritual graduation of the feminine also marks the beginning of her spiritual leadership. As she steps into her full power, she begins to understand her role as a guide, not only for herself but for others. The lessons she has learned through her struggles, growth, and healing become the foundation for her leadership. She no longer needs to seek permission or wait for external circumstances to change. She leads by example, embodying the wisdom she has gained throughout her journey. Her leadership is not one of control or force, but one of inspiration and authenticity. By living in alignment with her truth, she naturally draws others, especially the masculine, into their own growth and awakening. This ascension also signals a shift in the twin flame connection. As the feminine rises, the entire energy of the connection is elevated. The masculine, now confronted with her newfound strength, clarity, and self-sufficiency, is called to rise and meet her at her level of spiritual alignment. The feminine's ascension does not mean she has outgrown the connection. Rather, it signifies that she is now fully embodying her highest self, and in doing so, she creates the energetic space for both souls to evolve together. Her spiritual leadership does not force the masculine into alignment, but inspires him to awaken and step into his own power. The spiritual graduation of the feminine is a moment of profound transformation, not just for her but for the entire connection. She becomes a living embodiment of divine love, wisdom, and strength, no longer waiting for the masculine to heal or awaken but leading by example. Her ascension marks the beginning of a new chapter, one where she embraces her divine role, embodies her truth, and radiates her highest potential. As she steps into her spiritual leadership, she creates a path for both souls to ascend together, fulfilling their ultimate purpose in the universe. So, what do you think? Will the divine masculine finally confront his shadows, or will the consequences be too much to bear? We've just witnessed the calm before the storm, and now it's time for the final test. I want to hear your thoughts. How do you feel about the masculine facing this reckoning? Do you think it's what he truly needs to evolve, or is it too late for redemption? Drop your insights in the comments below. Let's dive deep into this together. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you won't miss any updates on the twin flame journey. Stay tuned, because the path ahead is about to get even more intense, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.